Hi guys, welcome back to our TransCAD tutorial. I'm Danny. In this tutorial, we will learn trip generation, which is the first step of the four-step approach. We'll do trip production, trip attraction, and then balance these results we get. I'm going to open a workspace from the tutorial files provided by TransCAD. It is called cross classification. A workspace is just a collection of files for a specific project. And here we can minimize the table first. On the map, we have an area called MCD, I guess. And we have the zones for it. And also we have the table behind it. We can do new data to data view. And of course, each row is a zone. We have their area, the ID, the name, the population, number of households, and a lot of other information, like the cars per household, income per household. So based on this information, we will apply some model and make an estimation of how many trips will be produced from each zone, and also how many trips will be attracted to each zone. So let's do trip attraction first. First of all, go back to the table. Let's first create some field so that we can store the results for trip attraction. So we can do data view, table, and modify. Or you can just right click on an empty space on the table and do modify. So we can add a field and name it home-based work trip _ attraction. And we can change the type of the data to real number. And let's add another field called home-based non-work trip _ attraction. The type is already real, so okay. Yes. So now go to the right of the table. We have our two empty fields. We will use this to store the result. Okay, so we are ready. So we will start the trip attraction by planning trip attractions. And if you don't have this planning tab right here, you should go to procedures to toggle it up by clicking. So now it's gone and now it's back. It works the same for other tabs as well. All right, so planning, trip attraction, and apply model. You have many options to estimate the trip attraction or production. So the classic way for attraction is a simple linear regression model. And here you need to have the model file, which is the MOD file for your project. If you do not have it, then you should create one. So let's say we don't have a model at all. So let's click cancel, and then we should go to build the model. So you should click statistics, which is again, if you don't have it here, statistics, create model file. Here we simply type in our regression model. Already we have a constant. You can use the value of 0 for the constant coefficient, or you can use whatever you like. And then we can add other variables. Choose variables, you can click on it. And then this field names of our current table will pop up. So we can choose household. And let's say we choose the number of retail employment, the number of non-retail employment, and that's it. So I don't have any value for these coefficients. I'm just making up a table, a model, I mean. So let's say 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3 for these coefficients. And OK. Save it on your folder. I'm just name it my attract model, and I'm going to override my original one. Now I've saved my made-up model, and I'm going to use it. Now I do planning, trip attractions, apply model, and go back to select my model. And here it is. We have these coefficients, we have their names, and here we need to choose the field that contains the specific variables. For household variable, we're going to use the field of household. And similarly for the other two, they are already popped up in there. And in the options above, we also need to be careful. Here, apply to which table? Apply to MCD table, which is our table here for these zones. And results in, you need to select the field in which you want to store the trip attraction. So that's our empty fields, HBWA, that's for this results. I click OK. So this finished. This will fill our field of home-based work trip attraction. And similarly, we can do it for the home-based non-work trip. We don't have another model for it, so we are just going to use the same model, but maybe we'll just change the number a little bit, pretending we're using a different model. Click and the results in the field of home-based non-work trip. We click OK. Now we got it. So here we finish the trip attraction for the home-based work trip and home-based non-work trips. Right? So now we can go to trip productions. For trip productions, you also have a lot of options. So what we're going to use is cross-classification. And for that, we will need this table we got. This table is just like a lookup table. For a given zone, based on its average car per household and average income per household, we will have a rate for each kind of trip. So you should have it ready for your project. Otherwise, you will have to build it. So assuming you have already had this file, we can do trip production by planning, trip productions, and cross-classification. Here, the input data, we should switch it. We should choose this MCD main table we have here. And we are using all the zones. Rates table, that is the table to get this trip rate, which is this lookup table we have. And rate fields. Here we are. We have the rates for 3 types of trips. So let's say for our little example, we are going to do only home-based work trip and home-based non-work trip. So we'll select them. And coming down here, we need to choose segments. The segment is to choose different types of household for our calculation. To simplify it, we will treat all the households of a zone similarly. So we will do the calculation for each zone based on their absolute average. And if you're interested to know how we can treat the households in different categories for a more accurate calculation of trip production, then you can go to the latter part of this tutorial video. So now here we're going to use household here. And here, average car per household, we need to choose the field that contains that data. In our table, it's auto per household. And average income per household, we choose income per household. And that's it. We click OK. It will generate a file. So here you select where to store it and give it a name. You can change it if you want. And OK. And I will overwrite my original file. And it's finished. So what it generates after the calculation is a joint data view from our original table. So our original table is called MCD, but the new table is called MCD plus cross classification results. So we go to the right. Here we will have the trip production numbers for home-based work trip and home-based non-work trip. And here we can also see our trip attraction value. So now, just for the understanding, we can do a quick manual check of these numbers to know if they are correct. For example, for this trip production result, let's say this number, 3247.4. For the home-based work trip, for this particular zone, we have in total 1249 households, and the auto per household is 1.96. The income per household is 32K. So in the lookup table, 1.96 household car per household will bring that to 2, and the 32K income will bring it to here. So this row will be the rate, and for home-based work trip, for example, the rate is 2.6. So I have made the calculation 1249 household times 2.6 give us 3247.4 trips, which is this result. So it's correct. And for the trip attraction, let's say here I'm using this zone to check it. The total household is 430. Auto per household is 1.55. Income is 24K. Oh, sorry. I was using the employment number. So the household is 430, retail employment 42, non-retail employment 578. So put those numbers in there with our made-up coefficients of 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. We have 1274.8 home-based work trips, which is here. So that's correct. Okay, so just to check if it's correct and to help you understand it. All right, so now we have our trip attraction and trip production numbers ready. And often the case, they will not be equal to each other in terms of the sum. So if we can we can do compute statistics for our current data view, and we can look at the sum for home-based work trip attraction and this home-based work production. They're close to each other, but they're not the same. For the next step of trip distribution, we need them to be the same. So here we will do trip balancing to scale one or both of them to make them the same. So we can close this statistic table. And we can do balancing by planning, balance. Here, input data view, we will choose our current data view of the original table plus cross classification, the joint table. And here we will click this pencil to add a balance. Here we need to choose the two vectors to be balanced. Here with the vector 1, we will choose home-based work trip attraction. Vector 2 will be home-based work trip production. And the method is you have options. You can choose hold vector 1. That will mean the attraction you believe it's more accurate, so you will scale up or down the production to match it. And for home-based non-work trip, we can click the pencil again to add it. Vector 1, we select home-based non-work trip attraction. Vector 2, the production. And maybe this time we hold vector 2. And we can click OK. Again, it asks you to how to store the output file. I will just override my original file. Alright, so here I got the result. It's a new joined table from our original data view of MCD plus cross classification. Now it's also joined with the balanced result. Here we can find our balanced result of home-based work attraction for each zone. Because we chose to hold it in the balancing, you can find that the balanced home-based work attraction result is the same as our estimation of home-based work attraction itself. It's not changed, but the production of home-based work trips was changed. And we also can find the home-based non-work trip attraction and production. So these fields will be later on used as the trip distribution input. And just to check it, we can compute the statistics again. And if we look at the sum, we'll see that for home-based work trip, the attraction and production are the same. And home-based non-work trip, attraction, production are also the same. All right. So that's it for our trip generation. We'll finish this first step. And thank you. And hello again. Just as I promised, I will now show you how to make trip production using cross-classification with different categories of household. So I'm using here the same example, the same rate table. And I do planning, trip production, cross-classification. Switching the main table to our MCD table. And choose segment. Here, originally we choose households, and we treat them in the same way. So now we're going to treat different categories of households differently. And for that, we actually need to have the data in the first place. So if we cancel everything, we go back to the data view of our zones. By checking the fields, I'm not seeing the data we need. So I'm just going to make up the data. I'll just modify, and I'll add a field. So the so-called category I'm talking about is just how many cars and how much income the household has related with our rate table. So let's say, just to simplify things, we have only 4 categories of household. The first category has 1 car and 10K income. We'll choose real as the type. And for the second category of household, we have 2 car with 10K income. And for third, we have 1 car, 20K income. The last category, we have 2 car, 20K. And click OK. So now we have these 4 fields. And this is the data I'm talking about. We don't have it. For example, for this zone, we have its total household, 1249. For these households, the average auto number is 1.96. But we don't know how many households have 1 car, how many have 2 cars, or 0 cars, or more cars. We don't know anything about it. But assuming we have that by simply making up the data. So I'm going to field the field. Let's say we have 100 households with 1 car and 10K income for all the zones. And for 2 car, 10K household, we have 20 of them for each zone. Similarly, the third category, we have 300. The last category, we have 400. I'm just making up the data, so assuming we have that. So now we can do trip production with that. Again, using this table, this rate table. Now we choose segment. So we choose for this category, we'll add it. All right, so the first category, or the first segment, as it is called here, the average car per household is what? You can choose from field, but obviously we don't have that. The answer for that is 1. How many car per household? Because the category is 1 car household category, so only 1. And similarly, 2 here, 1 here, 2 here. Oh, this is messed up. 1. Okay. 2. All right, I figured it out. So I fill them in. And for the income per household, similarly, for this segment is 10K. So I just tap that. This is 10K. So this category is 20K. This is 20K. So now that's how we fill in the information for different categories if we want to use that. And we click OK, we will have the result in the table as well. So of course the number is the same for all the zones because this number we made up are the same. So we can just check any one of them. For home-based work trip, this number, how do we get it? I have tapped the formula here. We have these 4 categories of household. And the trip produced will be calculated as, for each category, the number of of household, 100, for example, the first one, times its own rate. For one car, 10K, we will have in the rate table, one car, 10K, that will give us 1.995 as the home-based work trip. So we will do this for all the 4, and we get 26 and 14 trips. So that's our result here. So if instead we don't do this by the 4 categories, but just do the original one, we will treat them all the same. That means we get the average car per household and average income per household, and then do trip production by simply 1,000 household times the rate for this average we get from the table, which is here. Then we will get the result as 2,800 trips, which is not that different from our results here. But generally speaking, doing it in this way is more accurate. But of course, it requires more work by filling in all those data for different categories. You can choose whichever better works for you. So that's all for today's tutorial. Thank you. See you next time.